Welcome back to another episode of More People, More Problems with
Woo!
Chelsea and myself, Brittany. We're back again with a Wicked podcast today. Before we jump in with the topic, I just want to say, first of all, thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being,
Thank you.
one of us. We will continue to share all the goods about ourselves and keep everything else confidential as we always do. The thoughts are that of our own. And if you get a minute, we'd love for you to like, share, if it really resonates, which we hope they all do, but maybe especially this one, go on and write a comment or share it with a friend. We'd really appreciate that. And now, with the topic, Chelsea, I'll let you introduce what we're going to be chatting about today.
All right. Thanks, B. And thanks for that super enthusiastic intro. So that'll just bring us right into our topic, which is knowing your self-worth and when to advocate. And shout out to our dear friend and Brittany's sister, Rochelle, who was actually the
The
one who
inspo.
suggested, yeah, she suggested this particular topic probably when she was going through this exact type of situation for herself at work. So great inspo for us, and it's a great one for us to dig into today.
I definitely
So
can resonate with that.
I think
Yeah.
probably we all can, and this isn't even just a work-related topic.
Yeah.
This is like a whole of your life topic of understanding what your self-worth is. Um, and people need to think about this as it's like a public service, right? Like your understanding your self worth will help you to advocate for yourself. It will help to showcase what you're all about, what you bring to the table. It helps you set boundaries, helps you become more resilient as well. And there's a lot of components that are really, really key to this particular topic of self worth. Of course, it's like I mentioned, knowing what it is.
Yeah.
So, how do we figure out our own self worth and then being able to communicate our self-worth to
Would you
others.
say it's the same as confidence or is it nuanced away?
No, I think it's completely different. I think this is way more internal. I think, you can have confidence and you can exude certain levels of confidence, but deep down, you really, really need to be true to you and value yourself. So I think a lot of people might use self-worth and self value interchangeably, which is okay, but I really think it's like really understanding and believing what's amazing and great about you and what you're bringing to your organization or what you're bringing to your relationship,
Yeah.
in many facets of your life. So I think that's so important.
Yeah, it makes me even think that, well, maybe let me try this out. That self-worth or self-value is probably a little bit more factual too. I think people can be confident in things that they maybe shouldn't be. Um,
Fair.
and it's like, "Oh, well, I've been told all my life that I'm good at this." So I am like they just get taught to be confident in an area, but it's not actually an internalized value system of something that they can factually understand and really like put a few moments or evidence in play to be like, yes, this checks out. So I think confidence might be a reaction or a secondary effect to
Like an
self-worth or
outcome.
yeah, an outcome, but I don't think you can mix them. You can't reverse them, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, your self confidence, like you said, it can be displaced in that
Mhm.
it's not necessarily based on self worth. It can be based on other items or other elements that maybe aren't necessarily factual. I mean, I can walk in with confidence, all day long on various items. Is it truly ingrained in my self-worth? Not necessarily, but a lot of people can fake it till you make it. But do I truly believe in myself on various pieces of of me and what that is doing to support in my relationships or in my own
Yeah.
development or my
There's
career?
almost like an internal trust battery you need to build with your self-worth to be like, okay, yeah, charge it up each time you get a moment or interaction to really validate it for you and be like, yes, I do bring this to the table. And then, like you said in the beginning, it's knowing that, really internalizing it and then advocating it. Almost said that wrong. Outwards so that people know that around you too. And, from there you have boundaries, you have expectations for yourself and how you show up around others. You have expectations for what your rewards or return system should be like based off that self-worth. So I think it's really critical.
Absolutely. And I think, especially as women, if we look at this from
Yeah,
more of a diversity and equity lens, I think as girls or as women, I think that that's shifting, but a lot of us have been
yeah,
taught to hold our peace, essentially, to stay quiet on certain things, to go along with certain things, to
yeah.
let others in the room kind of take charge and whatnot. And I do think that we're seeing a shift on that right now, but I think that's been ingrained in a lot of us, so it's a little bit even harder for us as women to advocate for ourselves and
To
to really
self-promote.
is to self-promote, right? And that's
Yeah.
whether you're in your personal or your career, right? A lot of us have been kind of learned throughout the years to let others, possibly men, or even if you look at this from a diversity perspective, members of visible minority groups, to let others who are more in the majority to take more space in the room. And I
Yeah.
think we need to do a lot of work still to reverse that mentality, right? Because there isn't just a gender pay gap or like a diversity pay gap. I would say there's absolutely like a gender and diversity mindset gap that is at play here that we need to work on as like a society and our culture and whatnot, to make a lot of improvements where people are really understanding their self-worth and then are able to communicate confidently their self-worth in
Yeah, I totally
whatever
agree.
situation.
And I mean, so agreed, agreed, agreed. And I'll speak from my perspective, and my experience. Growing up, whether it was purposeful or not, there was so many cues and moments that told me I should be doing something, or I should react a certain way, or I should never boast about myself, even if I'm good at it, because that's not being humble. That's bragging. Wait to be patted on the head and said good job. Don't ask for something that you don't deserve. You'll know when you know, so just wait. And for me, and when I first started at Shopify, actually, that was very much my mentality. And I can think of a very pivotal moment where I was working with a coach and I started to realize my self-worth. So I started to do the internal work first, like you said, to realize, what am I bringing to the table? What are my strengths? What are my contributions to this point? And the reason earlier I said facts is, for me, the easiest way to do that was not to put all of these shoulds or emotional context in play, but actually to think of the moments and experiences and factual evidence that really gave me an unbiased view to what my self worth in the company was. And once I was able to do that, I was then able to, say it or communicate it with the right people to say, hey, here's what I've contributed. Here's what I've done. Here's the moments where you might not be aware, but it was actually I who led that project and led it to that impact. Or, and actually, to be very specific, there was a lot of work being done, and I was doing so many things behind the scenes. But I had bosses, and when things were get done, it wasn't malicious, but the boss got the credit. And in a few situations, I felt like it was me A to Z. Yet because I wasn't advocating, it was never the awareness and the feedback loop wasn't like, "Oh, Brittany did that." It was, "Oh, well, it was this team over here or maybe over here." And I was getting frustrated because I thought I should be recognized more. I thought, I'm doing all these things. I'm waiting to get tapped on the head. I'm waiting to get told, "Good job, and you deserve to take on more." And I wasn't getting it. And so I worked up the courage to go for a walk and have a conversation with the CEO and say, "Hey, like, here's where I'm at." And I remember seems simple now thinking back, but like I remember a few sleepless nights. I remember a lot of preparation and journaling. I remember a lot of this evidence finding. I wanted specific moments of where I contributed. I wanted also to reflect on the times where I had flaws or I wasn't at the right point, so that if he brought him up, I was able to actually say, "You're right. And here's some of the things." I wanted a very clear representation. And I didn't go in and say, "Hey, look at me. Look at all the things I could do." It was a conversation which is, hey, I want to get to that next stage and get recognized. And I feel like I am doing a lot of things. Some you might not be aware of, some you might be, but I just want to make sure that and that I'm clear on what it takes to get there, because I feel like there's a gap.
Mhm.
And in that conversation, I was able to talk about a few different things that I had done, where some of my strengths lied. I talked about some of my like areas for improvement. And by the end of that, I didn't get, oh yeah, Brittany, you're getting a promotion, but I did get the eyes opening to say, okay, let's talk more about this. And the months that followed were further conversations of, "Oh, Brittany, I saw you did this that's similar to that other one. Good job." Oh, like there was all of a sudden a recognition
Mhm.
and a pattern that someone outside of myself could now see. And within 5 months, I got promoted to that next level that I felt I deserved. And had I not had the self-worth and recognition of what I'd done, and then the advocacy to others around me, I wouldn't have got that. I know I wouldn't have because I was just waiting. And the sad truth is especially in like the business world, we're all so fucking busy. No one's watching you every second of the day and knowing what you're doing. Like this is why it's so important. This is why you as an individual need to know your self-worth, what you expect, what you've done, and then be able to communicate it outwards in a very tangible and real way. And like, don't be cheesy, don't be cocky, don't like say one thing and have no evidence. Do the work. But I think that it's really valuable
Right.
when
So
you
I
can do
think
that.
I think that that self-worth is that key, like, primary ingredient that takes you along that path, because understanding that is going to help you to achieve goals, right? And you did that through through advocacy, self-advocacy. It's going to help you to get recognized, and it may also help you to seek or negotiate new opportunities, possibly
Mhm.
promotions, as you've
Yeah.
just mentioned. So I think that there's a bit of a path that you can follow when you start out with the self-worth, right? So understanding your self-worth and really understanding and believing in what you're bringing to the table, being able to communicate that as you did in your example, at sometimes being able to negotiate
Yeah.
opportunities and lay it all out on the line of what your expectations are, all wrapped into a self-awareness at the same time, because like you mentioned in your example, understanding and communicating your strengths, but also mentioning where you need improvements as well, and
Yeah.
where you might have weaknesses, and those that self-awareness is always going to be really key, because our bosses may agree that you're really really great at something, but if you've completely glossed over the things that you need to work on, it might be hard for them to justify, promoting you into a new position or to providing you other opportunities that are going to help grow you, because you haven't even figured that out yet, that there's areas that, that need to be worked on. I also think it's all about being a continuous learner and
Yeah.
looking for that continuous development. And then, really key, I think, a lot of the times is like celebrating those little wins here and there where you had those conversations. And like when you mentioned in your example that your former CEO mentioned down the road, oh hey, like great, Britt, like I noticed, like that was great, that was similar to one in the past. That little check right
Yeah.
there, like, that allowed that individual to recognize what you had done as a result of your conversation. You need to revel in that in a minute, and also just think like, I got to keep doing this, right? I
Yeah.
got to keep demonstrating to people, because no, nobody can watch you every minute of the day and say like, yeah, I definitely know every little piece in the background that's happening that Brittany's contributing to. They can't. Like, it's just
And
not
nor should
possible.
they. Yeah.
Nor
Nor
should
should
they.
they.
It is your job
Yeah.
to for sure, you wanna have good managers and good bosses who are recognizing what
Yeah.
goes in, but I can't say I recognize the depth and the breadth of the work that goes into every project or initiative, that my employees are working on. So I do expect them, and not just during, like, a performance review period at the end of the year, I do expect
Yeah.
them to show me, and I wanna be proud of them, and I want them to then be proud of me being proud of them. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I want
Totally.
them to enjoy the fact that I was able to see that with their help sometimes, and recognize it, and put little markers along the way that are going to help them to continue to do that for themselves. Right?
100%.
Because
I mean,
it's you. It's your work that you're putting in.
yeah, and I mean, so I think that recipe that you just said is such a good flow of like the steps and everything. And I just want to dig into the first piece because I think that's arguably one of the two hardest pieces, which is how do you actually figure out your self-worth? And I will say that I have figured it out in aspects of my life, and then I have thought I figured it out in others, and then I haven't, and then there's more exploring. It's probably that continuous learning, but I think that how you do that, it's so hard and everyone is at a different level, and if you're not understanding where you are, I would start to look around and see who you surround yourself with. What is the mirror looking back at you? What is that communication? Because generally speaking, even if you don't know what it is, you are putting something out there and it is coming back. It is a representation of what you think it is, even if you can't articulate it at that moment.
Mhm.
And so I would first start to like seek curiosity around you of what really like, how are people treating me? And am I allowing that? And am I okay with it? Or do I think like, hell no? And if it's a hell no, am I advocating it? What once again, I would look at the facts, like especially in work, what are my contributions? What are the tangible milestones, achievements, learnings that I have? And I would write them down and
Mhm.
look at them. I would consider, one of the things I've always done in therapy or in coaching is like pretend that you're sitting across from yourself, but you're your best friend, and then start to review them as if you would be talking to your best friend. How would you articulate it? Because you will be so much kinder to
For sure.
someone you love than you are to yourself. But I think these are all ways to start to build out, that strength, weaknesses, achievements, expectations to then pull it together as this is what I expect and this is what I believe I'm worth or valued as.
So I want to jump on that point for a second. Talk to yourself as if you were talking to your best friend, or sit down and talk to your best friend and
Yeah, yeah,
seek their
valid.
feedback. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's funny because I've done therapy in the past, like years back, where my therapist had asked me to talk to myself and talk myself through the situation. What would I tell yourself? And not all of us are into it, and it's sometimes easier said than done. I'm like, well, listen, I'm paying to talk to you. Like, I want
Yeah.
my feedback. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I would say, like, if I were in this case, I have a lot of great friends, who are doing well in their careers, and even if they're not, sit down with your best friend and say, hey, what do you think are my strengths? Get that feedback loop going as well. Um, See what they give you, and then see how you would rate that against your own critique of yourself,
Yeah.
and then let that be a measure of your self-worth and where you need to have that improvement. And then go the step further and do that with your employees as well. Go
Yeah.
do that with your employees and seek out strengths and weaknesses, the kind of, what should I keep doing? What should I stop doing? What should we start doing? Things of that nature. Like, I think that's all really helpful to put you into perspective, your self-worth, and then to really put in elements that are going to help possibly improve, because for some of us, like you said, we're our biggest critique, and we don't think as highly of ourselves, and we diminish our accomplishments oftentimes. Oh, that was someone else, or oh, it wasn't that big a deal. Some things are a big deal, and how much you've invested in things to get an outcome. Why
One of
don't
the
you
things
believe
I
it?
used to do was, like, I would say that to try and be humble, but I'd want people to know, and, like, I just gotta say that's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
don't do what I did there, like, don't try and, like, be humble or play it down, like, it's so much more attractive in a human to just know it and say it and not have any, like, extra connotation with it. It's just like, "No, here it is." And here's what I expect from there instead of like, "Oh, I didn't really do it, but I'm really expecting you to know I did it." And like,
Yeah.
don't play games. I think that's important. The other thing you just made me think of is I think you're so right about like talk to your like get curious, get all of that. But then it's the hard part of okay, so now you have all these facts. You know your achievements, you know your strengths and weaknesses, you know your contributions, you got like, the feedback loop. But then it's like, okay, what does that mean? What do you get to
What do I do with
expect out
this?
of life, out of relationships, out of work as a result of that? Because I think that's that second piece of self-worth, which is like once you know where you are, you get to have expectations of how you are treated in all aspects of your life. And that's a very, like, fair expectation, and I think as women, I'll speak for myself, sometimes I would know that first piece, and I wouldn't allow myself to have proper expectations of the second piece. Meaning, I would know, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing all the things. I am, being a great employee. I am contributing all here. I'm having an impact, but it's not really fair of me to ask for more money, or it's not fair of me to ask for promotion. Like, oh, no, like I don't deserve that. Like I shouldn't." That's that second piece of like bullshit. Actually, you do get asked for that. If you have a wrong assertion of the first part, you don't, and that will come out in the wash. You will
Yes,
figure
yes.
that out. But if you do have an accurate self-worth assessment, you get to ask for the things that you want and are worth your time, your effort, your
Yep.
contribution, your expectations, and that goes in the personal life too. And I think that yeah, we just play that down too often, or we let things slide because we feel like we shouldn't, and I just want to call bullshit on it.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that you brought up the whole you could have a false narrative in your head about your self-worth. Now, we all know those people. We maybe at times been those people at
Yeah.
various
Hey,
points in our
Chels,
careers.
they're Delulu. Did I say it right? That was that girl.
Delulu. There's
Delulu.
some
That's it.
Delulus. There's some Delulus out there for sure. And then the advocacy goes way too strong, and
Yeah.
literally no one agrees with the assessment of the situation. So no one's going to accept the self advocacy, and that's going to be a difficult blow to that
And that should be
individual.
a tripwire to be like, "Oh, wait a second. Something's off. My calculation is wrong. Let me go back to phase 1." But hopefully
But
that doesn't happen.
but you know, as we all know, we have some Delulus out there who don't necessarily. It sounds so bad when you say it, but folks who have not properly assessed
Yeah,
phase 1, right? Do not move on to phase 2, and or if you move on to phase 2 and these are the types of reactions you're getting, I'm not saying just from like one people, like if it's
yeah,
generally the consensus,
yeah.
go back to you know, do not what is it? Do not start. No.
I was gonna say, do not
Do
do
not
what?
pass go. Do
Yeah,
not collect
yeah, yeah.
$100. Like, go back. Go
Yeah,
back a couple of steps there
yeah,
and reevaluate. I like it brings me to a bit of an example I have where understanding my self-worth was not necessarily accepted by my management. And I don't think it was at my own issues with phase one, so to speak. It was folks more on insecurity side on their own side and whatnot. And that does happen as well, where you have a positive self-worth of what, you know, you understand that you're valued at and what you deserve and whatnot. And other folks don't agree, not because it's not necessarily true, but it's because there's other deep rooted issues within themselves that they need to
or
deal with.
else
But
there's a clash, like, and
there's a
it's not gonna
clash,
yeah,
and there
yeah,
can be a clash, right? So I'm thinking back to an example, and this was like well over 10 years ago. And I was working as, an assistant to a
yeah.
deputy minister, to an assistant deputy minister, so an executive assistant position. But I was like actively looking for new roles and looking to progress my career. I'd been in this for over 2 years, and I felt like I had really absorbed and given a lot of impact. So I was applying on higher level opportunities, as you do in the government, and I made it into a selection process. And these things are, they take a long time. There's lots of steps, there's tests, there's interviews, there's references, there's all the things, right? I hadn't necessarily disclosed it to my management at the time that I was applying because I just thought, like, listen, I could or maybe won't make it through this, and that's fine. This is for me right now. I'll see how it goes, and then I'll obviously disclose at a later date. Listen, it came out in the wash that someone saw me at a test. And then, of course, that goes back to my manager. And her first reaction is, well, like, if you don't make it through, like, it's going to be really, really hard. And if you don't make it through, like, that's okay. And, like, I'll help you find another job at some point. in a year or so at level, and then you can go and explore other
Like, pretty
things.
much you don't deserve this.
Yeah, you don't deserve this. You suck.
Well,
Um,
I don't think they were saying you suck, but it's like you're
but like,
you're punching above your pay grade,
yeah, like,
essentially.
you're not gonna get it, and that's okay, and, like, that was the tone of the conversation. I remember going away so insulted and just, like, I'm lucky in that moment I had enough self-esteem at that point
Yeah,
to
I was
go,
gonna say self-esteem, self-worth that
yeah,
you weren't, like, in tears.
I wasn't in tears. I was pissed, I'm not gonna lie, but I got over that rather quickly and I said, "No, this isn't gonna stop me. I actually
Yeah,
know I'm gonna do well on this." I nailed the tests, like nailed the interviews. I kept going through the steps and I kept succeeding through the steps. And I said, "This isn't gonna hold me back. I know I'm gonna earn, based on
yeah,
what I'm bringing to the table." And obviously, it felt really good afterwards to be like, "Listen, I
we
made it
got
through
it.
and I'm gonna have another job and I've got various opportunities that are presenting themselves." So that felt really good. I put in the work, obviously. I knew that I had everything I needed to get to that next level, and I wasn't gonna let someone else trample my self-worth
Well, it's
in
a
the
good
meantime.
example of one data point shouldn't be the only data point you consider to then,
Exactly.
you know, collaborate your, or what's the right word? Then to be like, "Okay, I'm off on my
To
self-worth."
change your belief or
Yeah,
whatever
it's
the
like,
case may be.
no, that's one. Listen, but don't take it for all of the point of it, right? Because that wasn't the case, and thank God you really knew your self-worth and kept going and then got the actual reaction, but sometimes you gotta push through. I recently had a conversation where I was negotiating a package for some advising work I was doing. And we went back and forth. And I, based on what I believe I bring to the table, I was asking for a certain amount and they wanted to go lower, which, by the way, completely like, I get it. We're doing a
We're
negotiation.
negotiating.
And ultimately, what they came back with, I felt was too low for my time and my effort and my skill. And so I had to say, no, thank you. We're not going to meet in the middle. And I will say it was also hard. It made me question, am I over amplifying my self-worth? Am I assuming that I deserve more than I am? But then I was thankfully negotiating with other companies where I got more data points that it was like, no, it just clashed on that one. Maybe they couldn't afford. Maybe they couldn't, there could be a million reasons that I don't know about. And so also when you're in those circumstances, like you said, like you only know your side of the story.
Mhm.
And this is why it's so important to know your self worth because everyone has emotions, past experiences, current fucking shit going on in their life that you're not always going to meet and it's going to like work out perfectly. And so you need to have that level of self worth, that like baseline that you can walk away if you need to,
You
or
have
say,
to.
okay, right now it's not going to work. I'm going to go over this way. It's like dating. It's the same as like romantic partnerships where it doesn't always work and sometimes there's clashes and your expectations. And so it's just so critical and make sure you like we just said gain multiple data points to really understand.
I think that's a really fair point to bring up because it can't just be the one. There needs to be more of a representative sample,
Yeah.
obviously. And like we said, whether it's confirming your self worth or possibly negating your perception of your self worth if it's sometimes overinflated, it can't always just be one
Yeah.
sample, one small sample of individuals. But I think that that's a really important point. I think they're all really good examples. And for you, like when you went ahead, you know, maybe more in your conversation with your CEO from a couple of years back, how did you prepare for that communication? Like, did you script something?
Yeah.
Did you do some journaling? Did you like prepare something and then kind of like let her rip informally? Did you just talk from the
One of
heart?
my
Like,
biggest one of my biggest tools that I use that really paid off over the years, and it also did in this moment, was I would spend a lot of time reflecting on myself and journaling and writing down lists of like moments, experiences, like finding specific examples with evidence Instead of like, "Oh, I remember a time when I did this." It was like, "No, it's not an I. It's not a she thought this. It is a specific factual I did this and this happened." Like, it was very
Yeah.
specific. So I would have that. I would have, stories around it, and I would try and become really self-aware of the good and the bad, the ugly, all the things, and then I would keep 'em in my back pocket. And so for this conversation, it wasn't just in my back pocket, it was, like, all I had thought about for a week leading up to it because I wanted to go in confident, not cocky. I wanted to go in knowledgeable with self-awareness, but not, oblivious to a bunch of things. I needed to go in emotionally steady to be like, "Okay, I'm gonna be vulnerable and say some things. I might not hear things I like because he has a different vantage point." So I had to, like, almost build myself up for that as well. And I knew my 4 points I wanted to talk about, and it ebbed and flowed, and it was a conversation. I knew what I wanted to walk away from the conversation with, and that wasn't a new title. It was awareness of what I had been contributing and what I wanted to keep talking about. And I felt like I did that. But going back to that like secret tool, that was one of my biggest things I had and did all throughout my career and probably still do to this day. I will constantly have 1 or 2 things in my back pocket of things I can kind of bring up. You can think of it almost like an elevator pitch. If I'm being honest, I probably did this because I've always struggled with confidence and self-worth, and so it's something that probably helps me to, like, play it back in my head or else to have something to say. Um, but I kinda always have 1 to 2 things that I'm ready to talk about and 1 to 2 things that I'm growing on and I'm not good at, ready to talk about as well. Um and at different points, you end up in opportunities or
Mhm.
moments where it's like all of a sudden you get to have a conversation you didn't think you were. You better be prepared to have it. And so I just always made sure, I guess, I was ready for those things.
Yeah, emotionally open and available for whatever was gonna be thrown back at you. And I think one of the key points that you mentioned as well is you went into that conversation not going, I need a job offer after this. Like, they better put that paperwork in front of me for my promotion or my big bonus or whatever. It was in order to get the awareness. And I think which would possibly very well eventually lead to that because it's going down that self-advocacy route and promotion route. Self-promotion route is what I mean. Whereas a lot of people probably get fixated on, I'm gonna have my conversation and here's my new job after
Yeah.
this, and here's what's going to come immediately after this. And people get very fixated on that. And that's where a lot of um, negative results or,
It becomes very black
difficult
and white
conversations happen,
when
right?
this is all gray. Like, if you think about it as black or white, as in, I'm either gonna get that promotion or not. Or if we talk about personal life, like, I'm either gonna be in a relationship or not. Or like when you as soon as you get so binary, I think you lose sight and perspective of all the steps that are needed along the way and all the grayscale that's kind of needed to be able to have the nuanced conversation and growth and progression to get there. And so, like you just said, don't over oriented on one outcome because you not only might then tell yourself I just failed when you didn't because you grew in a million other ways and got recognition in other million ways, but you actually might be losing out on an opportunity. If I went in there and was like, give me this promotion or I'm done, I don't think I deserved it at that moment. I thought I did, but I didn't. I had more growing to do over the next few months, next 5 to 6 months, and I probably would have then had to quit, and then I
Yeah.
wouldn't have had the career I had. Like,
Yeah.
don't give up on opportunities because your ego gets in the way. Self-worth is opposite to ego. Self-worth is being self-aware of the good, the bad, and your expectations of how you wanna be treated.
Exactly.
Ego is this gnarly little devil on your shoulder that kinda tells you, "Oh, you should," like, it's a lot of the shoulds. You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
get rid of that.
The shoulds, should have, should do, should get, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. I think that um when you talk about your example as well in your communication, your preparation for your communication, what you're saying is, You did your self-reflection, you did a lot of journaling, you might have talked to a lot of like folks in your
Yeah,
lives or whatever and bounced some of this off. What a lot of it sounds like, and you've kind of scripted, you figured out your main points and then possible examples that go along with each, like as your evidence. So I think that's
yeah.
really important. You didn't draft up a PowerPoint and go like,
Gosh,
so I
no.
did this,
Doesn't
and
that
this is
just
what I
seem
should get,
like that's so ick?
all
Like,
in like
I
some like diagram or
yeah, no,
something like
100%.
that.
I think the magic of actually doing it right is finding that
It's
balance.
like organic
Yeah.
almost too, right? Because
Prepare so much that you can then seem like you're not prepared. That's
well,
the
I know, that's the beautiful thing. I like I think that that's really, really interesting because I talk to people a lot about this. Like, also, when you just know yourself, you know your stuff, you know what you're worth. You bring to your mind the forefront
yeah,
examples that validate those things, which is really important. It's like most people when they're preparing for an interview, right? They tell you like, what's the situation, what actions did you take, and what were the results. So connecting
yeah,
all the few different things, so your actions being your examples and your results being, and this is why, like, this was so
yeah,
great and this is what happened from this. So I think like allowing that to happen in an organic way makes it look like, it's super believable. It doesn't look like you full on scripted yourself and, built a presentation and it's mechanical and whatnot. It looks like, and like the way I talk to people as well when I'm preparing for presentations is, if I know the content and I know what I'm going to bring to this presentation, I don't actually need to look at it at any
yeah,
point. I might have a quick scan of it just to remind myself of various points that I will want to raise, but the rest of it needs to be holistic, almost in a sense
yeah,
that it needs to just come through as the conversation, like you said, ebbs and flows. And it's not necessarily like, oh, wait, hold on. Let me get my last 3 points in.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I
let me
mean,
stop you right there. Like, it
you
needs
gotta
to
be
just
ready
come
to
through.
completely pivot because you gotta actually listen. It has to be authentic. I think like real talk, like a presentation, that's the lazy route. You wrote it all down and then expect everyone to like do all of the work.
Just
It's
just
like,
believe it and agree
yeah,
with it and just,
fuck that. That's the opposite. Like,
it's storytelling, right? You're
yeah.
telling a story. You're
And you're
telling
the
the
main
story of
character.
you. You
Yeah.
are the main character in your story. You're telling a
Yeah.
story about you. Your
Yeah.
self-worth is wrapped in that.
Yeah.
Everything you're bringing to the table, everything you're expecting, you're negotiating through your storytelling as well. And that's not necessarily negotiating for a job or a pay raise or a bonus or whatever the case may be. It's negotiating to get those folks to the table to absorb everything you're saying and to take a different perspective
Yeah.
to reviewing you possibly over the next 5 to 6 months. Can you say that had you not done that, would you have been in that situation 5 to 6 months later?
No, I wouldn't
Cuz
have.
you brought that awareness. So
Yeah,
you it
I really believe and I don't mean that to, like, pat myself on the back, like, like, I wouldn't have done that unless I had amazing coaches, friends, mentors, so, like, thank you to all of you who got me there because I wouldn't have on my own, and, like, whether it's also, like, if you have to create a presentation to get there, do it, just don't use that as the final product, just saying, but, like, I think
structure
that
yourself,
yeah,
that's fine to
figure out what
prepare.
works, but then, yeah, really know it, believe it, and the thing is, I think like you said, it's believing it. Like, it's knowing it so well and believing it, then it doesn't become a presentation, it becomes your story. Like
Exactly. And I think that one of the key things that people need to remember is, it like we said, it's your story, it's your job
yeah,
to show your place, to
yeah,
demonstrate your place and the place you deserve to be at, whether it's where you're at right now or, later, other career progression and whatnot. That's your place to do that, whether it's in your life or in your career as well. So you need to advocate. It's not everyone else's job to necessarily recognize and to pull that out of you. You need to come prepared to work and prepared to advocate. So I think, like, if we come full circle, like we said, starts with phase one, understanding, knowing, feeling it, believing it. Phase two, fucking run with it.
It's like phase 2 to 6. Just fucking run with it.
Just
But
fucking run with it, and all the other stuff we talked about,
there's
obviously.
tons of good, but I agree. I agree, and I really hope that people listen to this and kinda do a self-inventory.
Yes.
Whatever aspect of your life, personal, professional, it's all different relationships that I think we should look at, and I hope it helps. I think it will. I don't see it how it can't, to be honest. So with that, let's have some wine.
Let's do wine. Woohoo!
Okay,
Coming in hot.
coming in hot. Okay, we're
Katie
back.
I was gonna say Katie said we need to improve our intros, so, like, there we go.
I don't think they wanna hear us singing, but, on that note, cheers, wine time.
Cheers.
Woo woo. So today, we have a wine that's called Riesling AF, and for you that don't know what AF means, it's as fuck.
Yes.
It's from 20 Mile Bench. It's a Canadian wine, 2020. I'm assuming it's BC. It doesn't actually say it's a part of Canada, but it doesn't say where. Um,
Interesting.
but it's rosewoodwine.com if you're interested. I believe this was another gift. So I didn't purchase it myself, but I'm really enjoying it. Like you had said, you used to like them Rieslings, but then you find them too sweet. I don't find this one too sweet. I find it like actually like sweet, but a nice crisp sweet. Um, I think it's about 21 bucks a bottle. And when I went on my Vivino app, it says it's among the top 8% of all wines in Canada, which
Ooh,
is
okay.
pretty cool. Um, I'm
Someone
getting
did you a
hints,
good gift.
right? I know. Thank you to whoever gave this. I'm getting like a lot of fruit, like apple. It's very appley to me. Pear.
Yeah, I'm
Don't you
getting
find that though?
getting a hint of, pomegranate and mango. I'm just
Okay.
kidding. What'd you
What
say?
did
It's from
Oh, it's from
Niagara,
Niagara. Katie just piped in with it. Did you give me this, Katie?
our
Okay,
little
well, Katie
researcher.
loves to go to Niagara. She goes there every year with her girlfriends, not us, rude.
Yeah, rude.
She doesn't even invite us,
Whatever.
but anywho, but it's very good to get a little honey in it too. So I would give this do we rank out of 10? I haven't ranked one myself in so long. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
out of 10.
we do typically rank out of 10, yeah.
Okay, well, I would give this for a Riesling, I would give this 7.58.
I mean, I'm probably around the same, like, I'm probably around a 7.5. It's a it's been a progression for me. I've kinda come off the Rieslings over a little while,
Yeah, you're too
unless
cool.
it's a really drier Riesling. I find this one a little bit sweeter personally, but just because I've been drinking drier wines recently. But
Yeah.
I'm
You're really
enjoying
a
it.
whole new woman. Like this, like compared to
It's
you
like
2
so
years ago,
different.
it's like
Totally different.
Kelsey walked into the house today and we were talking about wines, and I was like, "Okay, we're gonna do this one." And she's like, "I used to be in Riesling so much, but now I'm really a Pinot girl." And I was like, "Who the fuck
Just
are
like
you?
different person.
Bougie."
You know what? I was thinking that too. I'm evolving as a human being because just in a certain way, like I've been starting to eat some spicier foods recently. And you know me,
Ooh.
I don't
Yeah.
eat spicier foods. I put Frank's red hot sauce on some of my chicken the other day. Like, I know. I was like,
Who
what
are
the
you?
hell? So I'm kind of just trying to like
Why?
open my horizons a little bit.
Are you enjoying it? Or
Yeah,
are
no,
you
I am.
okay?
I am. Like for me, moderation is key for everything because like the old tum tum doesn't want to
Yeah.
accept everything too spicy.
36-year-old.
Yeah,
Chelsea's the epitome of, like, we'll get back from a night out or, like, doing something, and she's like, "It's too late for me to eat or else I won't sleep for, like, 3 hours." And I'm, like, drunk and, like, "I have to eat." Like, "What are you talking about?" I'm still living in my 20s era of, like, yeah, put some bass in there after drinks, and you're like, your timing, when you have to, like, not eat, you're like, "I gotta take my shower." You're very structured,
it's just like I am structured. I do thrive on structure. I'm trying to be a bit more flexible with those
which you
things.
are.
Some things I won't flex on. Like I always love to shower after a night out. Like I have to take out my makeup. I have to brush, floss my teeth. I do all those things. Like typical things. But yeah, I can't eat heavy like when I get back from drinking. Like if you were to just give me a plain piece of bread, I'd probably say like I'll eat that because it'll soak up some alcohol, but I can't like full on eat because I
Yeah.
won't digest for hours and I'll be up for hours, and that it'll be that kills me the next day, not a hangover. So I'd
Yeah,
rather just, like, deal with a hangover, and I always have to make sure I have a solid meal base before I drink, and
yeah.
everyone who knows me knows I'll be like,
You
"We
can't
gotta
drink
eat
and eat, yeah.
before we go out. We got because I'll just start drinking and it's like game
Then
over, you
food,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Screwed."
So, just to clarify, though, I do like to wash my face and brush my teeth too, because the way you said
That's
it
a
was
recent thing
okay,
for me.
don't expose me, it's been, like, the last 5 years, and
Suppose.
when I was truly in my 20s, I really did not like washing my face at night. Um,
But look at you, you still have beautiful skin, you know?
I've really turned the game around,
None the
really
wiser.
turned, yeah.
As we get older, though, we realize, like,
You
"Hey,
gotta take care.
that
I'm
shit
so
don't bounce
jealous of
back
these,
as
like,
quickly."
teenager kids that are using, like, sunscreen all the time on their
Oh,
face. I was
fuck.
like, "We never knew that."
I have sunspots on my arms and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I'm like, "Yo, why didn't
Had I
anyone
known.
force me to wear a load of sunscreen when I was
No,
younger?"
we
Like,
were
look at
putting
me,
oil.
premature aging. Yeah,
We
yeah.
were
A little banana boat spray on there, like, just grilling.
Yeah. Also, I should call out my eyebrows just because 'cause they're so intense
They
again.
look great.
If anyone's watching, I did get them microbladed again, so we got the touch up. This is day 2. And they are great, but they're rather intense.
I
This
don't
isn't
think
the
they
look I'm
are.
going for. Well, they're so dark, they will heal better.
Oh, shout out to Tara, our old Airbnb host, you know? Inside joke, I won't bring it up.
Yeah,
We're
that's
not
we
gonna
could that
talk about it.
remember when we said we don't confidentiality?
Well, I didn't say her last name.
Yeah,
Like,
anyways, the dark brows are good.
I love your brows. I think they look great. Listen, they'll fade in a couple of days, but I don't think anyone would have picked that up being like, "Oh my god, look at her brows.
Well,
She's
somebody
done
might
a
be
number
like,
on them."
"She
I think they
doesn't."
look fab.
Well, thanks. Thanks, thanks, thanks.
You're so
Otherwise, how are you? Things are good?
I'm good, I'm
Kids are
good.
back in school, life is good.
Kids are back in school, rolling into fall, rolling into some, big milestone birthdays for friends, some trips
Yep.
coming up, which I'm super looking forward to. Of course, I love any reason to like get away, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, so I'm just looking forward to that. And then it's like Christmas, like boom,
Don't
Christmas.
say that. We're so far away
I
from
know, but I
Christmas.
get so excited. It comes so
Yeah.
much quicker than you ever expect. And you're like, whoa, it's like mid November and Christmas is like 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, let's just
It's
push that
fun.
down.
I like to think about it, and then I prepare myself for the depression that happens between January
Yeah.
and mid-March.
Yeah.
But, like, I'll
Season.
cross that bridge when it comes to it.
Yeah.
But what about you, though?
Things are good. Yeah, I'm same, same. I mean, I don't have kids in school, so same, same, even more so. I feel like every parent I know, they're like, I no longer am the summer camp counselor for my kids, and now I have time. I'm like, that's great. But I feel like it's just moving along. We had a good weekend. Played more golf. My game sucks. The hardest fucking sport in the
You're
world.
having a plateau moment right now,
No,
do we
I'm having
call
a
it?
regression moment. This
Oh,
is growth, you
no.
know? But anyways, I'm still somewhat enjoying it. I'm taking a little breather from it.
Yeah, why not?
Um, yeah, sometimes you just need to get, step back, a little perspective.
Can't be amazing all the time. This is an opportunity for you to learn and grow, Brittany,
Yeah.
with your game and whatnot. You need to bring your self-worth to the forefront and
Ugh.
believe.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But like we said, working on it in many different aspects of life. So there you go. Prime example.
So many aspects. Well, I think that's kind of it for me. I mean, just the day-to-day grind and, enjoying some wine, enjoying some podcasting, catching up
Enjoying good
with people.
friends.
You know what I will say? Just one quick observation. I'm seeing a lot more people wearing masks again. Are you seeing that?
No, I haven't noticed at all.
Every time I'm going in the grocery stores, and it's
Oh,
not just like, the elderly population, I'm seeing a lot more people wearing masks in the grocery stores. And I'm like, do they know something I don't know?
I don't know. I am so I shouldn't say, like, if there's something bad out there that we don't know, obviously, I will do all the things to protect myself, the ones I love, but, like, I really hope that's not the case. Like, I want the freedom.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's just some paranoia and stuff like that, but I have made a note of it that a
I'll
couple
keep an eye
different
out.
grocery stores, I'm seeing a few more masks there, and I'm like, "Okay, we're getting back into that." I see, yeah, in a cold and flu season, it
Mhm.
makes sense, but I'm like,
Kids back at school, everyone always mind you, it's, like, so damn hot.
right, but, like, I was thinking about it too, like, for me, my kids being back in school makes no difference. My kids were in various camps all
Yeah,
summer
yeah, valid.
with loads of other kids
Yeah.
and, traveling as well, so I can't say that their experience in the fall is gonna be that much different from, the summer months and whatnot. They
Yeah.
were still very active and out and about. They were not secluded with us or anything, and I'm back to work, in the office,
Then I say
obviously.
just roll with it, Chels. We'll do a
Just
quick Google. If something
fuck
comes
it.
out, we'll figure it out, but fuck it. Just
Fuck
enjoy
it.
it.
Fuck it. Just
Enjoy
do
it.
it.
Drink your wine,
Okay.
shut up,
I'll
and no, I'm
just
just
do that.
joking.
Just shut up about it. Okay. Well, on that
No,
note, I'll
love
just
ya.
shut up.
No, 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 that's not what I meant, but maybe I guess we do. Cheers to, you. Love you.
Love ya.
Woo, woo. I keep woo wooing.
Woo. Chin.
I gotta stop.
Chin
Cuckoo.
chin. Yeah.
Okay, bye.